mostly high school students. And the end result was I learned something very early on, and I'm going to repeat it to all of you, both high school and college Democrats and young Democrats. The fact of the matter is, you have more influence on how your parents vote than they have on you. Not a joke. You may sit at the dining room table having dinner with your mom and dad and say, I met her and I really like her, or I met him and I really like him. And your parents will pretend that didn't matter much. But they'll go up, not a joke. They'll go up and say, if my kid liked that person that much and knew them, there must be something there. And I won. I won by 3,100 votes in a year that the Republican president beat the Democratic president by 68 to 32 points. And it was because of young people and young Democrats. So do not. And so what you've done here, what you guys have done here, is happened all over the country. I've been all over the country campaigning. Last time, the 18 election, I went into 24 states for 69 candidates. We won back. We won back the House of Representatives after I got criticized by the national press for saying we'd win over 40 votes for the House. We beat 40 Republicans in their district. Not we, they. And two things occurred. An awful lot of young people were awakened, just like my generation was. This time, they're awakened by Trump. We're awakened by the fact that there was a president who had us in a war that was killing an awful lot of my generation. We're awakened by the fact that the women's movement was just beginning and no one paid much attention. We're awakened by the fact the civil rights movement was in disarray and we had to finish it. But you've been awakened by Donald Trump. Now, I saw a tweet yesterday where Donald Trump said that they're going to regret, everyone's going to support him after he went after me and Senator Warren and others. He said, because they're going to regret, they're going to realize they have got a handsome, how do you say it? They got a handsome, very stable genius in the White House right now. Let's talk about that genius for a second. Where were y'all on the... I'm serious. I hope you all had a good 4th of July. Did you see President Trump's speech at the Lincoln Memorial? Well, look, I graduated. No way. It's worth seeing. It's a real education, folks. It's worth seeing. I graduated a degree in history and political science. I think I know my history pretty well. And I always consider myself a student of American history. But I guess I missed that whole chapter on the Revolutionary War. You know, the one I'm talking about. When Trump described how during the Revolutionary War, the American Army, quote, manned the air, rammed the ramparts, and took over the airports. I'm not making this up. Took over the airports in 1770s. Whoa! I missed that. I guess the Wright brothers got confused too. I don't know what the hell happened. Well, oh God. A stable genius. As my brother would say, give me a break. Folks, look. You know, that's what our president does. He talks about himself. Everything is about Donald Trump. And the things he says about Donald Trump don't bear any resemblance most of the time to who Donald Trump is. I think we all know in our gut this election is different, no matter how young or old you are. Not because I'm running, not because good people like Mayor Buttigieg is running and a lot of other people. That's not the reason. The reason is it's the most consequential election that anyone's faced, whether you're a young Democrat in high school or college, or you are over the age of 60. It is the single most consequential election. The fact of the matter is, you know why. We will overcome 4 years of Donald Trump. It will go down as an aberration in American history. It'll take a whole lot of work to put together a foreign policy, once again, that makes sense. It will take a whole lot of work to reestablish who we are as a country. But 8 years literally, not figuratively. 8 years of Donald Trump will change the nature of who we are as a country. Donald Trump's viciousness, his bullying, his utter disregard for people and personal lives is tearing literally the soul out of this nation. You saw it in Charlottesville. You saw what happened. People coming out of the fields with lighted torches, veins bulging, preaching and shouting the same anti-Semitic bile that occurred in the cities of Germany in the 30s, accompanied by white supremacists and Ku Klux Klan, met by decent, honorable people who said, "Not in my city." And he said, what did he say about them when asked? He said there were fine people in both groups. No president in American history has ever said anything remotely like that. And ladies and gentlemen, we saw it in Helsinki when he bowed and kowtowed to exactly what was going on with Putin, taking Putin's word over his interference in American elections, which is going on today. Today. And then at the G20, when he met again and made a joke, he said, "Of course you're not going to interfere in elections, are you?" or something to that effect. Ladies and gentlemen, North Korea, where he in fact exchanged, as he says, love letters with a thug, a murderous thug named Kim Jong-un. We see it every day at the border, where you've seen children ripped from the arms of their parents, put in cages. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not who we are. We shouldn't be separating families. And by the way, let me make it clear. This nation is big enough that we could have absorbed every single child in this country and not in any way been negatively affected, but positively affected. We are a nation. We have to protect our borders. We have to have a line. But ladies and gentlemen, the idea that he literally took the words, "a nation of immigrants," out of the mantra that is in the definition of what our service is about. He literally took the words out. No longer are they part of the description. This isn't who we are. You know, we all know that if we give this guy 4 more years, he's going to forever change the character of this country. Not a joke. We can't let that happen. You know, we have to beat him. The future is in the balance, and failure isn't an option. That's why I promise you, whether I'm your nominee or not, whomever the nominee is, I'm going to break my neck to make sure they get elected president. We cannot afford 4 more years. And folks, I know it's ancient history, but if you go back and check PolitiFact, I introduced the first global warming legislation back in the 80s that had consequence, that they labeled as a game changer. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in a situation where the existential threat to everything we do is climate change. That's not hyperbole. We know the clock is ticking. Whether you look at our own EPA, which he has emasculated, cut down, and essentially left for dead, look at the UN. Right now, they say 11 years left to deal with this problem. If you think about it, we're going to have less than that if we win back the presidency. Fewer years than that. Democrats won't take over before January of 2021. And I propose, and I'll let you make your own judgment, the most comprehensive plan that's been put forward in this campaign. You can check it out on my website, and I hope you'll read it. But in the interest of time, I want to point out 2 things. What sets my plan apart from others, and there's good plans been put forward. I focused on the fact that it's not enough for us just to get to zero emissions by 2030, 2045 or 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, we are responsible for 15% of the pollutants in the air. 15%. The rest of the world is responsible for 85%. That's why I spend so much time talking about why I would immediately join what Barack and I and others put together, the Paris Climate Accord, 193 people. Number one. And number two, what is not known about that accord, written into the accord, we wrote in the fact that every couple of years you have to up the ante. You have to up the ante. But here's the deal, guys. Nobody in the world but the United States has the ability to lead the world and pull it together to up the ante. Ladies and gentlemen, 85% of the pollution comes from the rest of the world. And you in New Hampshire know it well. Back when I was fighting like the devil in the 80s to stop 300-foot smokestacks going up in the Midwest from Indiana and Illinois, what were they doing? Dropping on your lakes pollutants that were killing your fish, killing wildlife. We stopped it. We stopped it. Well, imagine what happens. You think we're not going to have major glacial melting, seas rising, if 85% of the world continues to engage in what is going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, I respectfully ask you to take a look at it. And I mean it. There's a number in there. If you don't think it's enough, let me know. The other thing I want to point out to you is that, the fact is that I get criticized for saying we have to bring the world together on this issue and many others. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that that is old-fashioned. There's nothing old-fashioned about that. I'm not talking going back to what never was. I'm talking about going to what has to be. Take a look at what we're hearing now. We're criticizing Trump with good reason for abusing executive power. But how many times your candidates on the stage of the 400 of us running? How many hear him saying, if I'm elected, I will by executive order do the following? What are we talking about? There's a constitution. It separates power. It's important. It's to limit abuse of power. So, folks, there's two things we have to do. One, we have to work with Republicans where we can, and where we can't, go out and defeat them. Take it to them. And look, folks, I don't think it's that you have great leaders, but I don't think it's an exaggeration to say what energized a lot of you was Donald Trump and what he's doing. Well, that's what he's energized the rest of the country. I'll give you one example. In 2018, as I said, we went in and won. But what did we run on? We ran on health care. We ran on health care. I went into every state from Alabama to the red states where we won with over 40% of the vote, like Montana and North Dakota, as well as Pennsylvania, which we cannot win a presidency without winning Pennsylvania. There's no mathematical way to get there. All these states. And we went and we took it to the Republicans. Because folks finally figured out what President Obama had done with the Affordable Care Act. Did you have any Republicans running around saying, I want to do away with pre-existing conditions being covered? I want to do away with the fact that we're going to cut off health care at a certain point. I want to do away with the fact that, and on and on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, part of leading is educating the public about what's happened. And the fact of the matter is, because everything but locusts dropped on Barack's plate when he got elected, my mom used to say the greatest ability God gave mankind was the ability to forget. And then she'd add, and if they didn't, women would only have one child. But all kidding aside, think about it, guys. We forget just what he faced and what he did. It was the greatest recession short of a depression in the history of the United States of America. And it was all brand new. There'd never been a financial recession like this before. And it required entirely new thinking and chances being taken. At the same time, he went out and got Osama bin Laden and a few other little things were on his plate. But here's the deal. And a couple of folks here were part of the administration back then. I used to say, Mr. President, we gotta go out and tell people what the Affordable Care Act says. He said, I don't have time for victory lap. There's too much on our plate. Once we left and the attack took place, what happened? The American public woke up. They didn't know they had these benefits because of Barack Obama when they started to be taken away. So folks, we got something to work with. We got something consequential to work with here. And I am so optimistic. I know everybody says, I'm too optimistic. Look, I'm not too optimistic. I know the history of the journey of this country. The fact of the matter is, if we go and show our character as a people again, as a party, if we move in the direction of restoring the backbone of this country, middle class and hardworking people, by giving them back their dignity. My dad used to have an expression. He said, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. When we left Scranton after everything coal died, my dad, if you listen to Barack, you'd think I climbed out of a coal mine with a lunch bucket in my hand. I didn't. My dad was a white-collar, high school educated guy. There were no work, though. We moved to Delaware. And every time there was a recession, a little steel town called Claymont, every time there was a recession, someone in our family, some neighbor we knew, got laid off or lost their job. And my dad used to use this expression, my word is abiding. He said, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about your place in your community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. It's more than that. It's more than a paycheck. And ladies and gentlemen, we've denied people the right to claim their dignity. And we have to return it. And so, folks, and you can't do that without making sure that you look at your child and be able to help them when they're in trouble. I heard people say here how they lost people to cancer and lost their mom. How many of you have lost someone to cancer that you love? Well, you know what it is. Can you imagine whether you could have any dignity as a father, a brother, a son, a husband, a wife? If you're, in my case, my son came home after a year in Iraq, a decorated soldier, attorney general from the state of Delaware, with a terminal disease, brain cancer, glioblastoma. They gave him only months to live. I can't fathom what I would have done. And many people have been through this worse than I have because they haven't had the help I have. I couldn't fathom what I would have done if 4 months left to go, lying in pain in a bed in the hospital, they had said, time's up, you used up. You used up your benefits. Rest in peace. Folks, your parents, how many people in this state today, mom and dad are sitting at the kitchen table tomorrow morning saying, who's going to tell him or her we can't send them back to school? We don't have the money. What in God's name are we doing to people? And folks, we can change this tax structure overnight to fix this. So folks, look. There's more to say, but I'm not going to say it. Let me conclude by saying this. You know, a lot of you, I hope, are going to run for office, you young Democrats. I really mean it. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I got elected as the second youngest senator in American history to be popularly elected, no, it's not, I had a lot of help. When I got elected, people used to come up to me and say, what's your secret, Senator? There had to be some special secret if I won. Because how could I have won on my own? Well, here's the deal, guys. I tell everybody and every young person that's ever come up to me, and I'm going to say it to you who are young Democrats who want to run. Figure out what is worth losing over before you run. If you can't determine what you're willing to lose over as a matter of principle, do not run for office. Do not run for office. You'll be much happier. You'll be much happier doing something else. Because if you understand what you're willing to lose over, it can be communicated to people that you mean what you say what you mean, and even if you disagree, they will give you credit and reward you for it. And when you get elected, I need your help, whether I'm president or not. I introduced the first constitutional amendment to end any private funding of elections. There should be public funding of elections. Nobody involved. Nobody. You can change it overnight. So God bless you all. Folks, Concluding comment. There's not a single thing. I mean this now. Think about it. There's not a single thing America's ever failed to do when we've acted together. This is the United States of America. We can do anything we set our mind to. So get up and let's go get them. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Whoa, look at that. By the way, when I was a young senator, I was making a speech and I went too long like I did today. And somebody said, keep going, Joe. It's still raining outside. I apologize for the rain. I can't control that very much. But really, thank you for being engaged. Every time I'd walk out of my grandpa's house up in Scranton, he yelled, Joey, keep the faith. My grandmother yelled, no, Joey, go spread it. Go spread the faith.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. Thank you.
Just do it.
All right, before we leave...